Hola, hola a todos, bienvenido a otro episodio de Aprende a emprender. Yo soy Keila Morales.
Y yo soy Angeli Reyes y estamos muy contentos de tenerlos de vuelta en este podcast.
Bueno, vamos a empezar la temporada 3 con algo muy diferente. El día de hoy vamos a tener el episodio en inglés porque hoy tenemos a un invitado muy especial, Timothy. Vamos a darle un aplauso a Timothy. Welcome, Timothy.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Y bueno, para contarles acerca de Timothy, hoy, como les dije, we have the honor of diving into the creative universe of Timothy, a multi-talented artist, writer, designer, and activist whose work transcends boundary and sparks change.
Yes, and
Welcome.
this is Timothy Vejes. Welcome, Timothy. Very happy to have you here on today.
Thank you. That's a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we put in time and effort so we could
Yeah.
get it right on spot.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you here and to talk about everything that we're going to dive into today and get to know you more and more about that you are interested to do. And so, yeah, let's get in. This is Timothy's first time doing a podcast, so let's all give a round of applause
Thank
to Timothy
you.
for new experiences.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the irony of that, considering my feelings on social media.
Yeah.
But, so you have
We have
really
opened
won
you.
me over. Yes. And this is very cool.
This is
the coolest I've ever felt in my life.
Oh,
so
really?
Thank you. Yes.
we all learned something new, and this
Yes.
is an example of it.
Yes.
So speaking about Timothy and beyond the introduction we made, tell us about yourself. How would you describe Timothy?
Wow, it's a difficult question.
Yes, it is. I think I'm best described by my own work, honestly, and through personal connection. I'm a one-on-one kind of person. I'm an artist and a writer and an activist and a high empath. So, and I think that that's what informs my work, like not just the artwork that I do and the writing, but also the outreach work that I do as well. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved a connection, and I think that my work tries to do that independent of me, and then me one-on-one or in groups as we were earlier today, and certainly a good conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I have to mention that we were doing a lot of research about you, Timothy. And within so much interesting information, we discovered that you are an artist. You mentioned that, but also an activist. How do you see the relationship between art and activism in your work?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think my work kind of goes in two directions. One is a more personal connection. One is more an expression of feelings and emotions, and the translation of those emotions into either words or into visual form, and act on which I refer to as whispers, as we talked about earlier, and the more outspoken, the other side, which would be more shouts, are the activism side. And I think that both are, in many ways, they're one and the same.
Yeah.
They, it's about giving voice in activism and giving voice to feelings or giving voice to political issues that are, and in either case, my intent by sharing these ideas in this work is to heal. And so I think that's,
Yeah,
but it's loud voice and quiet voice.
Yeah, and I was waiting for you to mention something about this because I have another question.
Yes.
How do they intersect or complement each other?
I think feelings and activism are the same thing. When you feel passion for change, it comes from feelings. It begins with emotions, an emotional response, and that's often empathy, or you recognize injustice, and that makes you angry, and those are feelings. Yeah. And then we want to take those dark spaces and shed light on them. And I think that's where they kind of, if I consider activism dark space and feelings light space, even though at times they're both light and dark, that's where they cross over into each other. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, like, one's feelings are the motivator for anything we do in life.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to ask another question, because you were talking about your work and how they intersect or complement each other. But I wanted to know what pushed you or what opened your eyes suddenly and said, I wanna be an activist. I wanna use my art, my work to make a change in this world.
Life experience, which is actually the title, part of the title of the book. I think your own life experience are a series of observations of your own self in the world, your own place in the world, and the world itself. And to be honest, we live in a world that is filled with so much beauty and so much darkness. It is so much to process at once that I think that just leads an artist to find their own voice in that world and to do something in that world to make it better. And that's, I guess, the intent ultimately behind my work and any artist's work.
Mm-hmm. And behind your work and the activist things that you do, what do you consider is the sole purpose of everything? What is your mission with what you do?
Oh God, there's so many. They each, I'd say, to give more to the world than I've taken, and to give to any individual who I am ever with, to give more than I receive. Mm-hmm. And that's, in a place like Nicaragua, that is a very challenging thing, because people are so generous here and so kind and open with their hearts that it is a big challenge that I have to give more than I have received from the both of you and from everyone else.
No, on the contrary, we're learning a lot from you.
It's the gift of sharing.
Yeah, and those are the human experiences that we were talking
100%.
about before. And now this is another experience, because we were talking about this earlier off camera, where we were talking about what it is to feel a human, what it is to experience conversations, looking at each other in their eyes, and all of these things. And this is a different way to connect. Maybe we can't see people on the other side, but we're sharing a story, we're sharing emotions, and this is your first time doing this. Do you think this will help you maybe look at life or look at human interaction in a different way?
I think you've opened my mind. Earlier we were talking about how, yes, we enjoy that intimacy of a conversation and that healing that experiences in the human experience. But I also talked about how, from my perspective, when I'm creating an art piece, I am going through my own personal internal process of self-examination, or examining the world around me and translating that into words or visual form. But once I finish that piece, like, for instance, Making Purpose from Trauma, as we talked about earlier, this is a piece from the book. Like, when I put that out into the world, it's no longer mine. Like, it's only mine while I'm making it. But the moment it's finished, it's for the world. So being an artist it's a gift to be an artist, and it is a gift to be able to share and connect with people in ways that I might not ever meet personally. Even though that is my most favorite part of being an artist, is to connect with people in a human way. But in the same way that the book will land in the hands of someone who I will never know, but they are experiencing that conversation, I unfortunately miss out on hearing their response or hearing their feelings back. But so, yes, I guess, like, being on this weird internet thing is in I guess no different than that, because you're putting your work into the world. But I think that, as we talked about earlier, about imagining new forms in the way that this can be reciprocal, and that, maybe we can create a new medium through this that is expansive and responsive and reciprocal, which is some new themes that I'm interested in exploring. I might need your generation for it.
All right.
Okay. Today I knew a new word, that it's reciprocal.
Reciprocal.
I wouldn't forget that. Okay, talking about your book, as a visual artist, how do you see the intersection of your visual art and your grading work in the context of your book? Because we were hearing about your book.
Yeah, because the book Near Life Experiences, that's words and words alone, words as art, in the sense that we think of art, and the work in the body, my body of work in Passage, I've always had a literary component adjacent to the visual. So there will always be words associated with images, as in this body of work. And I think they're critically important because they provide context. And I don't incorporate that to explain my work per se, in as much as give a layers of metaphors that help uncover. They're non-literal, but they're suggestive of opening the theme wider.
What was the motivation to write a book?
It really just naturally evolved. I didn't say I want to write a book one day. I think I just began choosing this medium because it came out of me, and then one day I woke up and I had enough to make a book, and it was about that thick. And then, over a decade later, it's now 400 pages. So, and it's a living book. Like I said earlier, the reason I publish it myself is because I keep changing it, because in fact I wrote one today, and I probably tonight when I have a glass of wine I will write one inspired by our conversation. And nice. They take a long time to edit though. Like the raw idea gets there, but it takes some time to, sometimes it hits perfectly, and that's rare, and then other times I have to really think it through and find it's not my I didn't study writing. I studied design and communication. So it's always been, in fact, writing, when I was doing this visual work, the art installations, I needed to write for this, obviously, and that was a challenge. So it was never my strength, but over time I've developed a strength or a clarity, I think.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a magical travel.
Pardon?
The story about your writing their book sounds like a magical travel.
Yeah.
And it is inspiring because, like we were talking about before, all of us have talents and we have gifts, and some we don't exploit them. I personally, I like to write a lot. I like to write. I like to write poetry. Yeah. And when I was reading your book, I was like, wait, this is very nice. Like I would buy a book from the store, and it has similar like writing styles, and it's something that I like to do as well. I was like, but what does Timothy have that he had the courage to speak on his thoughts, on what you feel, which is your empathy, right? And it does inspire a lot of us. And maybe you never knew that. I was reading that while you were giving the conversation and you were talking about your art, but you do move people through your words. And they're not only your words, because like you were saying, when you put it out to the world, those words belong to the rest of us as well, because those are feelings and that we adapt due to our human condition as well. And speaking about your art and your work, is there a particular or a specific work that makes you the most proud or that stands out to you?
Not specifically. I mean, I think as you were talking, like that, I mean, I encourage everyone to journal, like, because this is referring to what you were just saying, because it made me ping, and now I didn't hear your question because I was
a lot to process.
I was so inspired by something that you said. And I think that what it means to give words and form to feelings is to give something a face. It visualizes something that's abstract that can otherwise like metastasize within us, like a cancer. So by getting it out is to exhume it from your body, and you can then have a conversation with those feelings. So for me, when I do it, I feel like it's a point of departure in moving to another level for me emotionally. And to do that for people who, like, not everyone's native language to processing their feelings is words. Sometimes they manifest in different ways. We all do different ways to process how we feel. And I think sometimes when you have words to which is why I said when they're no longer mine, once they go into the world, they're there for anyone to assign their own meaning. And I like to think of that and also activism as a way of giving voice to emotions for people who may not necessarily have the right words for it. Mm-hmm. And I find that in other ways, in things that I'm not skilled at, when I see people, I connect to it and I can put my feelings onto those places. So I feel like we are humans for a reason. We are a global community for a reason. And if for no other reason than to help each other in that way. Yeah. So that's the underlying intent. Mm-hmm. Now I completely forgot your question.
So going back to the question
but because you said something that so sparked, but that was our whole conversation earlier. Yeah, we just kept riffing.
Yeah. So. And so the question basically was, out of all of the work that you've done, which stands out to you the most? Or a highlight?
Highlights, yeah.
I think the visual art, when I took the most risks in life many, many, many years ago and stepped into territory that was the unknown, that work forever lives in my heart as a point of, I can refer back to it in moments of weakness, mm-hmm. and in moments of inspiration and in moments of pride. I'm not like a prideful person, but I think that when you cross over these boundaries and when you take the biggest risks, like I visualized stepping off a cliff earlier, you're capable of so much more after you've done it. Mm-hmm. And you just keep amassing more and more power, emotional power.
Yeah.
And that makes you capable of stepping into harder and more difficult territory.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question, because we were talking about your book as well, Near Life Experiences. Mm-hmm. Talking about experiences, this is your first time in Nicaragua. This mm-hmm. is your first time doing a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience being here in Nicaragua? Like, what is something that has impacted you a lot?
Oh, my God.
Besides this moment.
Well, this moment, of course. But the country at large, the culture of here at large, I mean, I feel like the language is a struggle, and I'm trying and working on it, and but the energy of here, the energy of the people, is just I feel like my soul lives here. Like my soul feels very comfortable here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
And I thank you for that. It is a privilege to be here, and it's a beautiful place, but the most beautiful thing of it, 100%, are the people. Everyone is kind. This is so weird. I walked down the street in the United States, and I don't feel that way. And I don't mean to hate on the United States. Yeah. But there is a universal sense of community here that is probably must trace its origins back to the indigenous times. I'm sure there are many explanations as to why that's so natural here, and there's a strong sense of community and empathy and humanity that mm-hmm. is uniquely Nicaraguan.
Yeah, well, life is full of unique experiences. This is another one for us as well, because we've never had, as we were mentioning before, we've never had our podcast being in English. Also, talking about languages, his book is in English and in Spanish. Así que si quieren leer este libro, pueden leerlo en español, porque al lado está literalmente. Can I touch it and open it so that they can see it? So
por supuesto.
Por supuesto. Claro. So here, lo tiene en el original, que es en inglés, y luego está en español. Voy a leer a sneak peek, a little. It says, life can be hard on love, y luego dice, la vida puede ser dura con el amor. Wow, a lot to analyze. Así que, palabras profundas. Y see, your art, you could, as you said before, it's open to interpretation. So mm-hmm. people, Spanish, English, lo que sea, lo pueden comprar, lo pueden ver y más allá de comprar es sentir y transmitir un mensaje con eso. Did you understand what I said right now?
Yes, I did.
Great.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, the last question. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For
Aspiring.
It's a foreign language for me. Aspiring.
Aspiring.
Okay,
Right.
for aspiring writers,
Mhm.
what advice will you give based on your experience of writing and publishing a book?
Like I said earlier, definitely journaling every day. Or like journaling. I don't sit and journal like in a routine kind of way. I honestly, most everything that I've written that's in this book comes from a moment. I capture it, I stop, and I type it in.
Yeah.
And it's funny. There's one in there that's quite special that I wrote. I was in Mexico City, and I was walking across the street at like a very busy. Mexico City is like 24 million people. It's crazy.
Yes.
Cars going. And I wrote it. I knew if I didn't stop and write it, I would never do such a thing. I stopped in the middle of traffic and wrote it. And I remember where I wrote a lot of these things. So I think that to answer your question, I mean, for some people, their process might be journaling every day, which a lot of people say do it first thing in the morning or whatever throughout the, like when your mind is fresh. But for me, it's living as openly as I possibly can and opening myself up to the world around me. And that means opening your emotions to everyone, to the people around you.
Are you thinking in writing another book?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is the book that keeps writing itself. So all it does is get bigger and bigger. But
I love the concept, by the way. I love it.
That's
I've
living.
never. Yeah. You add on to it throughout your life experiences, which is the title. I love it.
Do you have an advice for Timothy of the past? Before the book.
Oh, boy. I've heard that question before, and I think that we'll never have that wisdom, The only thing we will never be given the gift of the future today. So I think, as I was talking about earlier, what we do have is the opposite. And the choices that we make today, imagine yourself on the very last day of your life, which I'm hoping is a very, very long time from now for all of us. Imagine you are faced with a choice today, and you're deciding whether or not how you should do it, is to imagine when I'm that age, on the last day of my life, what will I wish I have done? I think that's the more important, for me personally, that's a perspective that I'm not very good at living in the moment. I'm terrible at living in the past, and I'm tormented by living in the future. So I'm always thinking in the future. But I think that's a healthy way of looking at any decision. And what that will say to you is be free, do everything fully, and have no reservations. It's the silly little things that will hold us back in life. And it's, at the moment, these things, but that's for another podcast.
That's another topic.
But we're going to make the best of those through our collaboration, no doubt.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yes.
hope so.
Yeah.
And so it has been a very interesting conversation. We've talked about a little bit of everything. En español, there's something un poco de todo.
De todo un poco.
De todo
Or
un
is
poco.
the other way around?
Well, I say un poco de todo, but you can say de todo un poco.
I have always said de todo un poco when
Okay.
I say it. Is it wrong or right?
No, it's right. There's no wrong
It's
way
fun.
to say
You can
it.
do it both ways.
You can do it both ways.
Okay. I'm going
Un
to
poco
try it
de
the other way
todo,
tonight.
De todo un poco.
Someone ask me something, please. Announcement to Nicaragua.
Yeah. Un poco de todo, de todo un poco.
If you see me tonight, say something that will suggest
Make
that I
you
respond.
say that.
Yes, and I'll try it the other way.
Yeah. So it has been very nice to have you here. It has been an honor to speak with you, to know about your work, about the movement and the impact that you have made.
Un placer
Thank
es
you.
mío.
Oh, wow. Very good. Y gracias a todos por vernos el día de hoy. Espero que les haya gustado el episodio y nos vemos hasta la próxima.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Did you enjoy it?